Hi, Paige.
Hi, Tamsin.
How are you?
Good. Feeling loose and relaxed and ready to jump in. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm excited for finally getting to talk about this podcast that we're doing. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited about our new mics, our new fancy podcast mics. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of our listeners who are starting out probably know us from the East Asian medicine field, but like maybe we can do a little intro and like share for the people who don't know us, who are we and what do we do? Do you want to start?
Yes, I will start. I know you and I, we have a lot of we're this and this and this and this. So I will start by saying that I am a doctor of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. I have a clinic in my hometown of Kailua, Hawaii, and I specialize in facial rejuvenation. I'm a brand founder. I have a traditional Chinese facial tool line called Yang Face. And I really utilize this line to speak out about cultural misappropriation, how to encourage people to express, understand, and advocate for cultural appreciation. And I also educate people on the origins of gua sha, the cultural and historical significance of it through this brand and tool line. So it's really personal to me and I really enjoy it. It's a nice outlet. And then I partner up with you and Dr. Emily, and we do health justice liberation workshops, which has been awesome for me. I kind of came in a little later into that whole scene, and you and Emily have just picked me right up and helped me integrate into understanding the necessity of our voices. So I've been so grateful to be included in that. And then I'll also do other workshops with other colleagues, or sometimes I've gone into bigger corporations and held workshops for them. Let's see. Another thing that I do in my clinic is I award scholarships to Native Hawaiians, and I particularly those in education or healthcare. So I give two a month, and the recipient can come in for 6 treatments. And this is to build rapport and a relationship with myself and with the medicine, and a way to give back to the community. And of course, I do ongoing donations to different organizations. So, yeah, it's busy, busy.
Yeah, you're
Um,
really successful in our field. I mean, like you, first of all, I love Young Face, and I bought that before you and I were even really friends, right? And
mhm.
so it's completely unbiased. So go check out Young Face because it's such an incredible brand. Um, and yeah, I just love I love how you infuse health justice as the foundation of your business. Like it's the foundation of your business strategy, which
Yes.
not a lot of brands or companies do.
Right. And that's actually why it was even created.
Oh,
Because I
really?
was thinking, yes, this is 100% why the brand was created. And I was like, who's going to listen to me unless they have something to hold and they can look good? Like, that was kind of like how I felt like the message was going to be delivered to a wider audience.
Wait, hold up. So you wanted to talk about these things. So
Mm-hmm.
and then so you created this incredible brand with work very intimately with your manufacturers in China. Like you've done all this research stuff, so you can use that as a tool to as like a speaking platform for what you really wanted to talk about.
Yes, more. And I feel so honored and humbled to be working next to you so closely. So tell us about you.
Yeah, it's like it's really hard to tell people what I do because I do a bunch of things. And I was at the hairdresser a few months ago, and she was like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh my god, it's gonna take me like 15 minutes to tell you what I do." And so I need to what I'm trying to do is channel that Gen Z energy of being a multi hyphen even though I'm old and like I like labels and boxes and categories. But um, I'm trained as a doctor of East Asian medicine, and I practiced clinically for a few years, had the best patients. But my heart was really always into research. And I did research throughout my program and eventually received a grant from NIH to do a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Washington. So I'm a trained doctor and a researcher. And I teach about health justice, specifically in the East Asian medicine field, talking a lot about the Asian American narrative. And what I do is I do workshops, lectures at schools. I've also worked as a consultant for different brands, big clinics, who
Mhm.
are interested in getting the sort of education to their staff. And I have a couple companies. So my main one is Elemental Archetypes, which I'm putting more work into, which is where I work with clients one-on-one and do a facial analysis reading, a Taoist facial reading. And I'm
Mhm.
branching that out to talking more about the solar terms, the lunar phases, yang sheng rituals, these simple, tiny, easy ways to cultivate health. Um, I think I've been thinking a lot about like self care versus self longevity. And I think there's a big
Ooh,
difference.
yes.
Yeah. And so I created this Luni solar calendar for 2022, which is something that my family and I do like every year. And it's really
Mhm.
looking at rituals based on the seasons and the lunar phases.
Mhm.
Um, what else? That's it, I think. Now I'm a podcast host.
Yes. I feel like you and I are those people where you have to kind of reverse engineer our days and wonder how are they doing all of that in a single day and still functioning and still all of those things.
Yeah, I
Um,
still take like a 4-hour bath every Sunday. That's like my new ritual. Like 4
I
hours.
thought of
What is
you. I thought of you this past Sunday. I did like a 30-minute bath
that? Uh-huh.
and I thought of you in your 4-hour bath.
4 hours. Clearly, I don't have children, right? Because there's no way I could do this if I had kids. Like it's a whole thing. Like if you walked into my bathroom, it looks like a cathedral. I was like, I better be careful because I have so many candles here. Like I could burn down this whole building.
Oh my God, I love that. Well,
Yeah,
the other thing that I love about, so with the Taoist, with elemental archetypes as a Taoist face reader, that is, you're just one person. So if you're lucky enough to get an appointment with you, it's one-on-one, it's very intimate and in depth. And I've been so grateful to have 2 sessions with you now. But then what I love about the calendar, and obviously I think you already figured it out, is it's a way to help a wider audience who might not be able to book you um, or, see you for their own consultation. It kind of is like a way for them to understand the importance of the things that you learned growing up in your family and educate people and give them these like tips and rituals that I find to be really practical and seamless. And something else that I had mentioned before is just the me loving that this came from you and your mom sitting down and having a tradition where you come up with these, well, you don't come up with the seasonal points, but you come up with things for people to do, understand, and comprehend around the seasonal points. And there's worksheets, it's hands on, but you're also getting a lot of information. And I just love it. And I love that you're doing this. And I hope people can get their hands on it.
yeah,
We just today's like we had, it's the first full moon of the Lunar New Year. So it's a great time if
yeah,
people are, can check it out.
yeah. Thanks for all the props, like free commercial, like calendar. Um, yeah, I wanted to create something. I actually was thinking about my clients because we spend like this a good chunk of time getting to know each other, and like I'm reading their face, like that in itself I feel really honored to do because it's like inviting, it's like it's our how we look is so deeply personal and intimate, right? And then to ask somebody to like look at you,
Mhm.
it I don't know if I would like, or I would be very careful as to who I would
Mhm.
ask, because we have a lot of insecurities, all of us, and which are like false narratives. But
Right.
but it was always strange, because it's like the things that these clients share is like incredible. I'm like, wow, like I'm feel so honored that you feel safe enough to share these like deep traumas, or like even like little insecurities that we think are so stupid or so silly, and to share this with a complete stranger. I'm so honored. And so after each session, it was like, all right, bye, like good luck,
Mm,
you know?
mhm.
And so I wanted to create something that would help them along this journey, along their journey of being on this beauty journey of rediscovering their narrative. And then, yeah, exactly what you said. Like, I also wanted to create something that is a bit more accessible and affordable. I understand these one-on-one sessions aren't affordable for a lot of people, but
Mhm.
I also have to like honor myself, because it takes a
Yeah.
lot of work to do what I do, and this is like a job for me. So
Mhm.
and really put that like power back onto the people. It's like
Yes.
you have all the tools you need to do, like, to live a long life. And in our world today, where we're beauty obsessed, and it's so strange because it's like beauty and self-care obsessed, right? It becomes this like, it to me it feels really overwhelming to take care of myself when I think about how the world perceives that, like
Mhm.
how like media pushes self-care. It's now become like work and not fun,
Right.
and really
Mhm.
hard and really intense, or I need a lot of money to do this. And
Right.
I want to remind people, actually it's like little tiny simple easy things that you can do every
Mhm.
day, that in that like what is it, like measures up to like a month of like like, and then 6 months, and then a year, and then a few years. You don't
Right.
have to like do these intense things that require a lot of time,
Yes.
like my 4-hour baths. but
Well, but
that's
that's
so
so
easy though.
I mean, that's kind of how our culture is here. It's like you work your butt off and then you have to go on this like super long off the grid retreat to recuperate from working so hard. But that also is not
Where you
sustainable.
take like
And
an ice bath, and like, and then and like not even eat enough proteins, and like you pay like $10,000 for a week.
right, exactly. But that is not, that's something too that is not healthy either. It's kind of, I always tell patients it's actually kind of doing something similar. So when I think about when you work really hard at work and then you go to the gym and you pump a bunch of iron, and I'm like, you literally did the same thing, just one was mental and the other was physical.
Mm,
Like both of those things are very draining,
yeah.
and that's not really, like you're saying, this idea of self-care versus, would you say, self longevity?
Yeah, I think about that a lot lately. Like, I don't
Yes.
understand self-care challenges. You ever see those things? Like 30 days self-care every day challenge. I'm like, what
Hmm.
is this? Oh,
Right.
okay, I gotta like, today's day 3. I gotta like do my matza, and today's day 7, and I gotta meditate. I'm just like, I feel like that goes against everything about self-care. And
Hmm.
so I feel like we've taken, like we do with everything, like something that's good and simple and easy and overcomplicated. And so I've been using the term self longevity, or really thinking about the word longevity. And to
Hmm.
me, that's very Chinese medicine, that's very
Yep.
Taoist. And it has a different connotation than self care. I feel like self care is just so hard now. And it's like, I don't
Hmm.
like, just talking
And
about my chest is so tight.
yeah, well, it's fleeting, right? And when I think of the characters of like Yang Sheng and what it means and symbolizes, and probably the same in Korean or maybe in the traditional Korean written language, but there's that the Yang character is really cultivating, nurturing, nourishing. That word is also used a lot in child rearing. So it has this like permanence and longevity already built in it. And then sheng is like your life. It's like a lifespan, a lifetime. And so the two together is actually trying to illustrate that, but the message is lost into, and we have different words for self-care. We don't use that word yang sheng. We might use it as fleeting as like babysit someone. Like, like it's a short thing. It's a period and it's temporary. And so anyway, I just think of that and how it gets lost.
That's really good. Like, what did you say? Like, short term, like, that's what self-care is like now. It's very
Yeah.
short term.
It's a responsibility. It's like a duty.
Yeah.
And then you do your duty and then you are done with your duty.
Yes. Like an obligation, where I think of self-longevity as this thing that's so integrated with your everyday life that it's not like something that, not like another task you have to do, but it's just like how you live.
Exactly. So let's tie this in, because I think this is great. This is some Taoist principles with the title of our podcast and the intention of that title, Beauty as a Birthright, and kind of the commentary that Taoism has on beauty as a birthright. So do you want to kind of talk initially from a Taoist perspective, and I can chime in and share what I feel about it as well?
Yeah. First off, I love our title, Beauty as a Birthright. Come on, like that's such a good title. I see it on merch. I see it as a plug. Oh, I love our title. Um, we were talking about, because we're both in the beauty wellness industry in different ways, and we ourselves have talked a lot about our own personal beauty issues and journey, right? And so um, I think as we were talking, we're like, beauty is a birthright. Every human being has the right to be beautiful, to feel beautiful, to experience beauty. I think of life as something so beautiful. And like the older I get, the more I realize I want more and more beauty, like in my life, like in the words I read, the music I listen to, the conversations I have, in every aspect of my life. And in that sense, I'm very beauty obsessed, right? But we live in this culture of beauty obsessed culture, which is very different.
Mm-hmm.
And we probably always have. I'm reading this really good book about the history of makeup and how it's impacted throughout history with beauty. And yeah, we're very focused on just one aspect of beauty, physical beauty. And
Right.
beauty is such an elusive concept. Like the physical beauty changes with like 10 years, 5 years. What we thought was beautiful is no longer beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were talking how beauty is a birthright. Done, that's the answer. But like, what does that even mean, or how do we even get there? Like what like then what is life if that's a birthright? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's how we came up with like, let's do a podcast and like, let's figure this out, because you and I don't know the answer. And you and I,
Right.
because we're multi hyphen creators, um, and we're experts in certain things, this is something we're not an expert in. We're like just two human beings trying to figure this out. And we want to interview other people who
Mm-hmm.
can teach us and who may not also know the answer, but together we're going to like figure this out or have maybe a better understanding of beauty.
Right. I think that's something that we agree on, and what we do understand, like you're saying, is that it is a birthright. And I think for me, and something that you work closely with through your elements archetypes, is this idea of your original face, right? So when we're born, of course, we have what we inherit from the heavens or prenatally. And then after birth, we have kind of like postnatal, what we inherit from earth, and we still inherit from heaven through breath, um, and, harnessing the cosmic energy and cosmic chi. But then, so we already have this gift that is non-dual with nature and with whatever people believe is its creator. And so that already is the start of the birthright. But then we go through life kind of moving away from nature, being socialized away from it, or losing touch with the patterns, which I know your lunisolar calendar is helping people come back into touch with that. But we move away from it, and people have jobs and corporations, and they kind of just lose touch of what should be really intuitive and just a natural human power. And then I think you and I know, and through both of our work, try to then help people return to that destined, kind of like predestined, destined face that was always inherently beautiful.
Yeah.
And so this is where we kind of have this idea of beauty as a birthright. But I think you and I understand this intellectually, being with so immersed in the medicine, but we're trying to figure out like, yeah, we get it, but we also like need to like really know, like really, really, really know if we are getting it and what everyone else thinks about it. And if they think they get it and if they don't think they get it. And so we're just trying to really get a more comprehensive understanding from all walks of life, multidimensional lens, scope, perspective on what this really means to people and how they define their beauty, how they see their beauty. And then of course, you and I talk about this idea of a legacy.
Yeah. I mean,
Yes.
with it, when I always like, it's like when somebody sees you for the first time, like sees all of you, and you experience that like witnessing, right? Like, or if you get to witness somebody else like seeing themselves, it's so powerful. And like we all have that. Like it's more than like feel good about yourself, self-esteem. It's not that. It's something like deeper where it's like something clicks in your head that you're like, I have a purpose in this life. And then that changes things. Like, I don't know if I'm making sense, but
Mm.
like beauty legacy is like something that, yeah, we both talk about. And so we come from Chinese medicine, and so a lot of Chinese medicine is all about this concept of immortality, and like all of the acupuncture, or like the Chinese medicine was
Mm.
pretty much like created because a bunch of people wanted to like have a good time, drink a lot, and live a long life, have good sex. I feel like that was it. People like to mystify and exotify Chinese medicine in this like Orientalism way, but it's literally like, how do we party? How do we hook up? And how do we live a good life and not have any hangovers?
Oh my
And
God.
I'm like, I'm definitely like taking a tongue-in-cheek thing to it. But I mean, essentially, that's what it was, right? It's like, how do you live a long, healthy life and really enjoy the pleasures of life? And doing so, like, that's how we achieve, we have enough time to achieve immortality. And so immortality is not necessarily like living forever, but living
Mhm.
long enough that you can fulfill your destiny. and
Yes.
and to me, beauty legacy is like, that's what it means. It's like, what are you going to leave behind in this world, through your children, through your work of art or whatever, that is going to continue living on and contribute to humanity once you've passed away. And I think when we think about beauty, it's like, I, yeah, I'm just like, I'm beauty obsessed. And so I think we just have a very superficial understanding of beauty. I think it goes on so much deeper.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I was thinking too, as you were talking, another way that I feel like I can understand beauty or help others understand beauty is seeing myself in other people and having other people see themselves in me. And
That's it.
that, yeah. And because you were mentioning like being like seeing someone, hearing someone for
Mhm,
who they are,
mhm,
and not just picking apart a feature and thinking if it, like how it compares to some Eurocentric view. But for me, it's like, what do I see in this person that I also see in me? And like that feeling, and not in a way that's like conceited or narcissistic, but that feeling for me provides a sense of like comfort. And in that, I find a lot of beauty.
Do you feel more connected and less lonely then when you see?
Yes.
Uh, oh, that's
Yes.
really interesting.
Yeah. So,
I
I
do
mean, we're
something
gonna,
kind of the opposite.
yeah.
Like I'll see something in someone that is probably the thing in me that annoys other people, like the trait that other people find annoying in me. I'll see that in other people, and I'll be like, oh, I get it now. I get why like certain people don't like me, but it doesn't. But I don't see. It doesn't hit me where it's like I feel like it doesn't hurt my feelings. I'm just like, ah, okay, I get it. And then I think it's funny because it's like usually a trait that I don't think is like a negative trait in my personality, but
Mhm. But that's still, yeah. So that, but that's still seeing you
oh
yourself in
yeah,
someone
I feel
else.
connected. Yeah, I feel
Yes.
connected. You and I
Right.
both annoy other people, the same people. And so
Oh my gosh. Well, so what are your fears around this? I mean, we're embarking, this is episode 1. We're really ambitious. We have a awesome lineup, like,
yeah.
but we have a ways to go. So tell me what your fears are and what else has been on your mind about this podcast.
So I guess like, when we first talked about this, I think my biggest fear was like I don't want to become physically beauty obsessed. Like I don't want, as we do this podcast, that I start following like all these people in the beauty wellness industry. And I'm not saying they're bad people, but like I don't want to be obsessed with like my wrinkles or my like, lines or getting older. It's like and buying all the masks, buying all the creams and getting plastic surgery like that. Oh my god, that would be my biggest fear. Like we do this podcast and then like
We go
season
to
3
Korea.
I've got a whole different face. And our podcast episode is like, come with us to get our 5th facelift. And like not that it's bad. It's like I think I want people to have more autonomy with like how they look. It's like,
Yes.
yes, if you want to get 5 facelifts, then go get it. If that's
Mhm.
what you really want to do. But if you're doing it because society tells you, and I think maybe I just have problems with like anybody telling me what to do. Um,
Right.
and I wish we had more autonomy in like how we express beauty and how we feel beauty. And
Mhm.
so that was my biggest fear. I think I go through phases. Like this week, I'm like, no, that would never happen, and so I'm good. But who knows? Don't at me if like I book a surgery and I wanted to get something done. Don't at me. Like that's where I'll be. But I think other fears, um, maybe just like the fear of the unknown. Like I think now that I'm older, the idea of aging is getting to me, and like I feel very behind on beauty. Like I've always
Mhm.
felt behind on beauty. Like, growing up, everyone wore makeup before me. I didn't even know how
Mhm.
to put on makeup. Nobody taught me how to put on makeup. Uh, and I mean, we're still talking about physical beauty because that's like the easiest thing to think of
Right.
talking about
Right.
now. Um, and even now, I'm just like, what? There's a butt cream? Like, do I need a butt cream? Like, I don't even know what the butt cream does, but everybody has it. So it's like, like, is this something I really need? And so my worry is like, I'm behind. And so as I age, like, it'll be too late. I should have got the butt
I
cream 5
see.
years ago.
Mhm. But see, that's still, I feel like that perspective is still coming from like a self-care versus self-longevity feeling.
Yeah. I mean, that's the unlearning that I have to do. And I
Yeah.
hope that like we do that together with this podcast. It's because it's so
Mhm.
ingrained and conditioned in us that like that's
Right.
what we think. And I want to unlearn that. Like I want to get to a point where, and you see it sometimes, we see it in older people sometimes where they don't give a anything about how they look, and they express
Mhm.
themselves, and they're very playful with their expression of beauty. That's what
Mhm.
I want. I don't want to be older and like still trying to pretend like I'm young. I feel like that to me is like prison. It's like,
Yes. Yeah. I had a teacher. I remember one of my teachers, and I just recalled this past weekend. He had said, so many patients ask me, if I get Botox, am I going to look younger? And I always tell them, no, you're just going to look like everyone who gets Botox. And I was like, that's such an interesting like wait. I'm like, oh.
wait, who said this?
This was his name is slipping me right
Oh
now.
wait, no, but it was the teacher or something.
Yes.
I love that.
It was an acupuncturist.
Oh, okay. Wait, hold on.
And it was a male. And yeah, I was just like, oh my God, that's such a good point. Like, we shouldn't be measuring Botox with youth. We should just be measuring it with other Botox and having that be how you compare your results. Like, how Botoxy do you look, not how young do you look. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
It's so funny. No, you're just gonna look like everyone else. Oh my God, I love
Oh my
it.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, what are your fears about doing this podcast? I mean, like, this is like a big step. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
we're putting this out there into the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're having a baby, Paige. Do you know
I
that? This is
know.
our baby. I don't know if you know, but we're in a relationship and created something. We're giving birth today under the full moon.
On the full moon. I feel like my fears are that people won't find us credible.
Mm.
And I think, I mean, from the get-go, we are being open and honest that we're not experts. We're not trying to tell anyone what they should feel or think about beauty. We're learning along with everyone else. But I also know that you and I, to a lot of people, represent the same type of person, like on face value. Young Asian female in the East Asian medicine field. So I'm worried that that is going to just attract a very specific demographic that is really similar to us. And maybe that is how it will be when we start, because that is our community currently. But I'm really hoping through our guests and through us being candid and vulnerable and honest, that we'll be able to have a wider audience. And it won't become like, oh, these girls are actually pretty privileged and look at them talk about beauty. And more like, wow, they ask really deep, meaningful questions. Wow, they really showcase this guest well. Wow, they have a lot of great inquiry and I'm learning a lot. Like, that's what I want from this. But in the meantime, not knowing how it's going to be received and thinking of, initially they'll just see our photos and they'll see our titles and they'll have to see if they want to listen or not. So that is some of my insecurity about this podcast.
You know what I was thinking? I was thinking like, oh, we're two Asian faces. And I was like, I think most people, when they see that, or when they see on any other like two women of color faces, they just assume that it's just for that community.
Right.
Right. And
Right.
I mean, my podcast, like what I listen to is it's very multicultural, multiracial. Like, I listen to a lot of like queer podcasts too, which are funny. And but we don't question when it's like two white faces. Like, that just assumes that it's not just for white people, it's for everybody. And I wish that I wish that would change, if we saw two Asian faces or two Black faces, like that is actually for everyone. It's not just for that specific community.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like that. Yeah, that is such a good point.
Because you learn a lot. Like, I'm listening to this podcast that I love, and it's two Latinx hosts, and they talk a lot about Latinx culture. And I grew up with a lot of Latinx people, so a lot of it is familiar, but a lot of it isn't, because that's not my culture. Yet I can relate to it so hard.
Right.
And it's funny. And so, and they ask like, and they talk about different topics that are, I think, relevant in like every culture. And I love that. but like all the commercials are in Spanish. Like their sponsors are all in Spanish. So I'm like, I don't know, I guess that, it doesn't occur to me like, oh, I'm only listening to a podcast just for Latinx people.
Right. Yeah. And then I guess my last fear for now is that I'll be more confused
Yeah.
about beauty and my beauty story and my beauty legacy and all of these things after we get rolling than had I been when I started. I mean, I doubt that can even happen, but we'll have so much information from so many different walks of life, and we'll all be processing it. And you and I will also be doing episodes on our own where we're processing episodes and hashing them out. But I still I don't know like what's gonna come. And I'm just curious if one of the things is gonna be like, holy crap, everything I thought before, none of it is true. And I have to completely recreate like what I think is my new truth. And I mean, that is, I think, like healthy and healing and needed, but it's gonna take work. So that's just a fear, not meaning that I think it's gonna be like a negative or wrong, but just that it's what's ahead and it's gonna, there's a good chance it's gonna happen. So just
So
another thing.
your clinical practice is it primarily like facial rejuvenation?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like 85%.
And so as you built this practice, because you had like two practices at one point, you were practicing in California and in Hawaii. And so has that, like, as you were building and growing, has that influenced like your beauty, like either you becoming more beauty obsessed or like changing your ideas of beauty?
Definitely. I think for me, it's made me really, really value natural beauty. I always have. I think, just growing up with a mom who's a tomboy and she didn't have a relationship with beauty or makeup or accessorizing. So it wasn't modeled for me. I mean, although my grandma was very much into all of those things. But anyway, so I always valued natural beauty because like you, I was slow to wear makeup and
You don't have a butt cream? I'm just kidding.
I don't have a butt cream. But yeah, so I think moving home to Hawaii, and I realized like all of my patients are coming in, almost all of them are coming in so they can, because in Hawaii, for the most part, we're barefaced. We're going to the beach, we're doing outdoor activities, and we don't have too much.
It's
we
hot.
don't put
Makeup melts off.
Right, exactly. And so people are coming in so that they can feel more confident being barefaced. And so I moved to the mainland at 18 to do all of my schooling, and only now at 35 moved back home permanently. So I missed all those years I was on the mainland. I was getting up, getting ready, putting clothes, putting makeup, because at that point I had finally caught up to that part of our culture. But then now that I'm coming home, and it's such an interesting thing when we talk about returning home, and then returning to, my birthright, my like original face, it has been about being bare and natural. So I love that. And that's what I've learned. But that's just a really specific small community, Hawaii. And
nice to hear, because it's like,
yeah,
that's what I wonder, like people who do facial rejuvenation, because like that's all you look and think and study about, right? So do you become more obsessed with how you look? Because you also have to look a certain way if you're going to say like, into my practice.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So, and that's the thing is I've already noticing I'm at this point in my life, and no judgment on anyone, but I'm completely natural. So, but I've noticed how much I've transformed, and my face has changed and transformed. And I know you also mentioned it's more complicated, but in a really good way. Like there's just more depth there. There's more meaning. There's more of a story and a conversation. And I really love that. So yeah, that's where it's kind of gone for now.
I mean, we kind of talked about it. So like on the opposite end, like what are your hopes for this podcast?
My hopes, as cheesy as it sounds, my hopes is to help everyone feel beautiful.
Oh, I love that.
I mean, but it's absolutely the truth, because so many women, I primarily see cis women in my clinic, they all come in and they don't feel like themselves. They don't feel great. And then we work together really intimately to help them feel beautiful. And so I want everyone to feel that way. But I think that's why we're having such a diverse group of guests, because we don't just want people like us to feel beautiful. We want people that are going to be represented by our guests to also see, hear, unlearn, and feel beautiful based on that demographic or that story, or how they can relate to that individual we have on the podcast. Yeah. What about you? What are your hopes?
Yeah, I think similar. Like, I want people to feel beautiful and know that it's their birthright and not to question it. Like, I see that with my clients, like after a session. Um, but I saw them being beautiful to begin with. Like, I read their intake first, and they list all the things they don't like about themselves. And so I prepare myself to see the picture. I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to see? And then when I see their picture, I'm just like, what? They're so beautiful. And when I tell them this, like, I don't know if it sinks in until the end, where I tell them like everything about their face, like what it all means. And then I think they get it. But you know, we don't hear that often from other people, I think, and then we don't believe it in ourselves. But
Yeah.
I'm really excited to learn about how different cultures and different people, and I use culture broadly, like racial, ethnic, like how, however you want to define it, like sexual orientation, I think that is a culture itself, gender, how they think about beauty and what's considered beautiful in their culture. Like, I want to learn. I think like I can learn so much from my own culture, but I think I can learn so much from other people's culture. Like, growing up, I think like the yeah, I grew up with drag queens in New York. Uh, and it was awesome, like going to parties and then getting to know these drag queens. And like, I had never seen beauty expressed that way. And so growing up, like, that's kind of what I was emulating, is like the queens that I was hanging out with, and like how much fun, and that's playfulness to me. And so I still try to like emulate that, or like they have a self-confidence and they don't take it so seriously, and it's beautiful. And when I like put on makeup, I'm not doing a whole drag makeup, but like I want, like, that's the spirit that I want to capture. So I'm so curious to learn how other people in other cultures talk about beauty. And I think yeah, and I want people to think more conceptually about beauty, and then know that it's this social construction. And so if it's a
Right.
social construction and it's been like ingrained in us, then talking about beauty is almost like, because we do work in health justice and we do work in decolonization. I honestly believe this is like decolonization work. If we don't talk about it, then we're still stuck in this colonized framework. And
Yes.
the beauty industry in itself is like, the narrative has always been shaped by white cis men, right? And so this is why we have this perception of beauty. So if I'm going to decolonize East Asian medicine, decolonize every aspect of my life, and that's what's so beautiful about decolonization, is that it liberates you in every aspect of your life. And it should, you shouldn't just do this work for your brand or for your practice. Like,
Right.
it should seep into every aspect of your life, from your personal life, like your family dynamic, your relationships, like your romantic relationships. And so I think of beauty in that sense too. Like, we have to decolonize it. And if we don't talk about it honestly, and we have so much fear about talking about it, then we're still stuck in that frame. Like, and yet it impacts every aspect of our life. And And I think it's cool. Like, I think we're gonna capture this moment in time with different people from all over the world and like
Mhm.
have it somewhere, like
That I love that.
like
Yeah.
we're doing like we're creating like a what is it?
Another legacy,
A legacy. What are those
time
like
capsule.
anthology kind of thing? Like, like
Mhm.
hopefully when we're dead, like somebody will find this and be like, "Whoa, this is what they talked about."
I know. They're like, now we can communicate with like telepathy and holographic like imprinting, and that this will be like, but it'll be cool to be like, wow, primitive beings
Yeah,
actually cared
right.
about this. Now we're just spirits in a
Right.
different dimension.
And like, our guests, our lineup of guests are people that are big names in the beauty wellness industry, like massive names, right? Really
Mhm.
important people.
Yeah.
And then people who have nothing to do with the beauty wellness industry.
Right.
And to me, though, they're equally interesting because it's like, but yet they belong to a community, right? And it's like, I
Yes.
want to know, like, and I want to know what makes people feel beautiful and then check
Mhm.
in with myself and be like, I hope, like, I think personally too, I hope like this will um make me feel more confident, like help me feel more confident. I think I have a pretty good self-esteem. Like I was like, we have the best podcast title. I think I have a healthy self-esteem, but obviously I'm human. I have my insecurities. And as I get
Mm.
older, I want to have like not care. It's so hard to say, like, I don't want to like care about what other people think, but I do. I want to care less about what other people think of me.
Right. And I think, in case it hasn't been obvious so far for people that are still listening, is that this is going to be, of course, we're going to talk about the features, physical beauty. We're not going to ignore that, but we're really trying to go much deeper than that and understand such an essence, like the essence of beauty and the deep inner workings of when everyone's like beauty is, internal beauty. And those are other things too that I think are less obvious because of how our culture and society is, and pointing out who's beautiful and who's not. But another hope for me is really getting a solid grasp on what that means across cultures and identities. And I think that will also ultimately really help me, at least, take focus off of this feature, that feature, and feel really enriched um, really enriched with who I am on the inside, and then let that guide me to then feel really beautiful and help that guide me to leave my legacy and my story behind. So, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. So our podcast is going to be like twice a month, 2 episodes a month, right? One
Yes.
episode we're going to have a guest. Um and then we're going to have a follow-up episode to just you and I chat, kind of similar to this. So
Mm,
that people know that we're on this journey with them. Like we're not
right.
experts in this area, you know,
Hmm.
don't talk to us about it, talk to your therapist about it. But listen in and like and share pretty like raw and vulnerable conversations, but also like make it funny sometimes. And because you got to
Hmm.
laugh about this. I mean, this is just beauty is just like it's
Yes, that's a monkey in you.
it's bananas sometimes. Like
I'm like, you're not telling me to laugh.
right, right. Yeah, and I hope that like it grows and people will chime in too and like share their journey.
Yes, that's what I would love to, is if we get to a point where listeners chime in and ask us a question, suggest guests to us, propose topics and ideas. That would be amazing. And then we could really, that can help guide us too and guide this podcast. So, and it can start now if anyone, wants to start giving us feedback. That would be lovely.
Yay. All right. That's our first
Yeah.
episode. I'm excited about this journey with you, Paige.
Same. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.